In this lesson you will learn a few important tactics. Tactics can help you win your opponent's pieces, but before you can properly understand tactics, there are a few important terms you must know. The first term you already know, threats. And you know that a threat is when you attack one of your opponent's pieces and threaten to capture it. Or, if you can make a move that threatens to make an exchange where you win points, then that would also be a threat. Here's an example of a threat. If you move the queen to d7, you will attack the knight. And black will save the knight by defending it or by moving it to a safe square. Another term you should know is a target. A target is a piece or a square which you can make a threat against. There are different types of targets. The first kind is referred to as an undefended piece, also known as a hanging piece. In this position you can see that black's knight is a hanging piece because nothing is defending it. White's bishop is also a hanging piece. When a piece is hanging, then that piece is usually an easy target because it's easy to threaten that piece by attacking it. But a target is not always a piece. It could also be a square. For example, if you move your queen here, then you would be making a threat against this square, because you are actually threatening to checkmate black's king on the next move. If you put your queen on h8, then black's king can't go anywhere, and he also can't capture the queen, since he will then be in check by your bishop. The next term you should know is a tactical pattern. A tactical pattern is a trick you can use to effectively attack various targets. In this lesson, I will show you 4 tactical patterns. The first tactical pattern is known as a fork. You already know it's often good if you can make a threat against your opponent, but it's even better when you can make a move that carries multiple threats at the same time. For example, if you move your queen here, then you are threatening to capture the hanging knight, but you are also threatening to checkmate black's king. Black has a big problem now, because how can he stop both threats with only one move? He can't. And since he would rather not be checkmated, he will block the checkmate. Maybe he will push the pawn to block your queen. But then of course, white will capture the hanging knight and win 3 points. I'll show you another example of a fork. Here it's white's turn to move, and he can now fork black's king and rook by moving the knight here. Black's king will be in check, but at the same time the white knight is threatening to capture the rook. And since black's king is in check, he must do something about it first. And after the king moves out of check, white will capture the rook. This also serves as a reminder why you should keep your king safe, because when your king is exposed, then he's a vulnerable target that your opponent can exploit by means of tactics, as happened here. The second tactical pattern I'll show you is known as a pin. A pin is when you attack a target, but that piece can't move because behind it is another valuable target. Let me show you an example. Here, white moves their bishop and pins the black rook. The rook can't move, otherwise the king would be in check. This means on the next move, white will capture the rook and win 5 points. Here's another example of a pin. White could exchange his knight for black's knight, but he has an even better idea. He moves the queen here to pin the knight, because if the knight moves, then white could capture the queen. And white now has 2 pieces attacking the knight. And since the knight can't move, white will capture it on the next move and win 3 points. The third tactical pattern I'll show you is known as a discovered attack. I'll explain it using this example. White's bishop acts like a mask in front of the rook, because if the bishop went there, then white's rook would be attacking the black queen. In this situation you can sometimes move away the mask and at the same time try to make a threat with this piece. For example, you can capture here and check the black king, and at the same time you will now be threatening to capture the black queen. And since black must do something to get his king out of check, you will get the queen on the next move and win a lot of points in the process. Here's another example of a discovered attack. White's bishop is the mask in front of the queen. Once it moves, white's queen will be attacking the black queen. White can move the bishop away, capture this pawn and check black's king. And again, once black gets the king out of check, you capture the queen. So this is how a discovered attack works. The fourth tactical pattern I'll show you is known as removing the defender. If you follow this example, you will understand how it works. Black's knight is defending the queen. If white captures the queen right now, then the knight will simply recapture it and it would be an equal exchange. But white has a better plan. He exchanges the bishop for the knight. Of course it's check too, and if black captures the bishop, then you'll notice the black queen is now a hanging piece because we removed the defender and now we can simply capture the queen. By the way, I just want to draw your attention to the fact that many of these tactics involve checking an exposed king, which again proves why it's so important to keep your king safe. Here's another example of removing the defender. If you count points in this position, then you will notice the points are equal. Now, if white could put his knight here, he would fork the black king and queen. But the problem is, this bishop will simply capture the knight. So this bishop is the defender here, because it's defending the square. So what you want to do now is see if there is a way to remove the defender. And you can, as the rook can capture the bishop. And even though in itself it's not a good exchange, it is however still a good idea, because if black actually captures you, then you can fork the king and queen and win even more points, because the king must get out of check and then you will capture the queen. This is also an example of what we call a sacrifice. A tactical sacrifice is when you sacrifice a few points because you know you will win even more points on the next move. As in this case, white was willing to sacrifice the rook for a bishop and lose 2 points because he knows on the next move he will fork black's king and queen and win even more points. In the last part of this lesson, I'll show you how you can sometimes escape when your opponent tricked you with a tactical pattern. The first thing you should do is to relax and don't move quickly. Take some time to think about the situation, because there is often a way to escape. I'll show you a few examples. Black just moved their knight here, and now he forks your 2 rooks. Of course, if he captures your rook, you can capture him back with your other rook, but that would still be a bad exchange because you will lose 5 points and get only 3 in return. But there is something you can do. You can move your rook here and pin black's knight. The knight can't move, otherwise the king would be in check. And as a matter of fact, on the next move you will simply capture the knight. Here, black just moved his bishop here, and now he's forking your knight and your rook. But there is a way to escape. You can move your rook away and at the same time defend your knight. So if black captures the knight, then you can capture back with the rook, and it would be an equal exchange. In this last example, black moved his knight to fork your rook and your queen. But you can escape. In fact, you can turn the tables on black, because you can move your queen here and check the black king. And once the king gets out of check, you can capture the knight. So black thought he had forked your queen and rook, but in the end you forked his king and knight. There won't always be a way to escape from a tactic, but if you stay calm and think about it, you will sometimes find a way to escape. This is the end of the lesson on tactical patterns, and in the next lesson I'll show you the 4 most common mistakes in chess, and I'll show you how to avoid making them in your own games. I'll see you there.